Welcome to the Small Scale Life Podcast. Live from Minneapolis, this is the Small Scale Life Podcast, and I'm your host, Tom Domris. We're live streaming on YouTube, second time in a night. This hasn't been done yet on the Small Scale Life, but I was feeling good. Why not give it a shot, you know? Plus, I promised some folks that I would get this podcast rolled out. We are live streaming on YouTube, and I would like to welcome all of our listeners and viewers there, especially our insiders from the Small Scale Life Facebook group. Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to the show. I have a great episode of the Small Scale Life for you tonight. This is Season 2, Episode 16, where I interview the Michael Jordan. Not the MVP basketball player, though, but he is an MVP beekeeper and award-winning mead maker. Michael is a husband, a father, a teacher, a bee whisperer, and an entrepreneur. I had such a good time and learned so much from Michael on the show that there are times when I was just speechless. It's kind of funny. I was just talking to my sister-in-law over Facebook, and she said I must have a man crush on Michael Jordan. Nah, he's an expert, and I appreciate people who know their craft and are really good at it. So I really appreciate the time he spent talking with me and taking me on his journey as he talks about mead and bees, businesses, and teaching others. I'm still blown away by this interview. It's really good. Because Michael and I had such a great conversation that lasted about 3 hours, I'm going to have to break this interview into 2 or 3 different podcasts for you. In this podcast, we're going to focus on Michael's journey into beekeeping and mead making, and we will be discussing facets of the beekeeping business. Part 2 will dive into more of the beekeeping business, and then part 3 will actually have answers to questions provided by my audience, the Small Scale Life folks and people around the net, about beekeeping issues. You won't want to miss those shows. They're really good. Before we begin, I wanted to thank Drew Sample from the Sample Hour for connecting Michael and me. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, my friend. I owe you a nice cold Pabst Blue Ribbon at Hogtoberfest. Well, something anyway. We'll figure that out when we get there, right? So thank you, Drew Sample. You're awesome, man. Okay, in case you're new to Small Scale Life, this is a blog and podcast dedicated to developing a sustainable life through gardening, healthy living, frugal living, and having adventures along the way. At Small Scale Life, we're always dedicated to learning, doing, and growing. This podcast is brought to you by the Small Scale Life Facebook group and the Small Scale Gardening Facebook group. Before we begin our interview with Michael Jordan, let's hear from our sponsors. Hey everybody, just wanted to remind you about the Small Scale Life Facebook group. This group will give you a backstage pass and access to other members of the Small Scale Life community. We'll discuss gardening, healthy lifestyle, frugal living, and having adventures along the way. This is also your chance to see what's coming up on Small Scale Life. See some content not shared on the blog and ask questions of future guests. Join Small Scale Life's Facebook group today. Do you want to share your gardening story and experiences? Do you have questions about plants, blight, or critters? Do you want to join a fun community online? You should join us at the Small Scale Gardening Facebook group. I created this group in April of 2015 so that people could share their gardening and harvest preservation stories. Our group has everything from container gardeners to homesteaders to urban farmers. Stop by and take a look around and share your story. Continue to learn, do, and grow on the Small Scale Gardening Facebook group. All right, enough from our sponsors. Thank you. And now we are going to dive into this interview. Now, as I mentioned, this is a pre-recorded interview, so we're going to roll this here, and I'm going to jump on YouTube, and if there's any comments there, I'll be communicating with them and also listening to the show. So I'll finish up at the end, provide some thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up for the night for the 4th of July weekend. So this is kind of a little bonus track, so it's going to be great. So sit back and enjoy our conversation with Michael Jordan, bee whisperer, beekeeper extraordinaire, as he talks about his beekeeping journey. I have a very special guest today on the Small Scale Life podcast. Our guest today is the one and the only Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I'm one of like 1,300 in the United States.
Yeah.
I think the basketball player Michael Jordan is only like 7 years older than I am, and anyway, so
I'm really excited to have you on the show today. It's something we talked about for a while. It's been a while in the works, but the timing was right, and it's great to have you on. For those of you who don't know who Michael is, he's an award-winning mead maker, which is awesome because my mead was not so good, but we'll talk about that. A beekeeper and small business owner. You can hear him regularly on Jack Spirko's Survival podcast. He's on the expert panel, and Drew Sample's Sample Hour podcast. We're going to be diving into beehives and talking about all things bees. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
hey, thanks, man. Yeah, I been catching some stuff that you guys have been doing in your area. And Drew, man, Drew's like mass like circuit board of connection of everybody in the world of like homesteading, farming. Get out of your house, never watch TV again, you anarchist, burn down your house. Yeah, so after talking to him, yeah, I get to meet some pretty good guys. And
oh yeah, Drew's got an excellent group out east, and yeah, he is so connected. And that's one thing that I regret is that I didn't go to Permaculture Voices where you were there, all those guys were there, because there's just so much brain power that's there, so many cool people, and now we just have to build on our own. So I have them on one by one on the podcast.
Yeah, no, that was a different realm of people that I've never encompassed before. And when I talked to Diego about talking about bees, and they're big on taking permaculture to a business level, right? That not only should you be able to do this to produce food for everybody, but there should be aspects that, anything from insurance companies insuring permaculture, villages, farms, to building equipment. I mean, that's kind of like what Permaculture Voices was not only getting out what permaculture was, but it was like massive ideas of people like how to stock and save seeds, devices. That's how the ribbon planter, people got to actually see the ribbon planter and how it was used before. Because people are like, well, I'm hand stitching seeds, or I got paper towel and I have a hot glue gun and I put that as a hot glue, and my wife goes behind me and puts the seeds on these paper towels, and then we lay it all out. To see all these different things on a scale was different there at Permaculture Voices. But when you talk about those people in those areas, like say I met Greg Burns, and I met them at Permaculture Voices, so that was a good meet and greet. I didn't get into Permaculture Voices and stuff until I met Jack Spirko, and that's on a whole different end. That's more of economical survivalism,
right?
I don't think people, when people think about survivalism or anything, he talks modern survivalism. And when he's talking about that, it's about mostly securing your monetary wealth. And if that means like you have to grow your own food to save more money, you grow your own food.
Right.
If you got to downsize on a business and move to a different state because it's economically better for you so you can be more stable, that's what you do. So he's on a whole different end. So Permaculture Voices were more people getting into the earth and dwelling. Jack's more of money orientation and prepping for a venture at home. There's another gentleman, he does a podcast, like a homesteading podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And that's more of reaching out to woodsmen and more skill sets for people that are primitive. Right. So you said that, so there's a jaunt of everybody having their own task when you get on these things. I mean, like when I got a hold of Drew, he shot me a podcast that you did with a local guy in your area that works in Florida. He's moving bees and stuff. He works with the guy at 400 Hives. I mean, I tune in, I listen. I think that the more that I don't know everything. I know a lot. I spent a lot of money traveling around the world to learn what I learned. And the program that I wrote for the United Nations for youth organizations, I spent a lot of time doing it. But man, there's everything from Michael Bush. There's the Barefoot Beekeeper out of the UK. There's Tom Thor. There's Top Bar Beekeeping with Les Crowder. There's the Eco Bee Friendly Bee Box with Albert Korbachek. I mean, there's just so many different types of beehives, beekeepers trying all different kinds of cool stuff that, I mean, you have to, if you're a geek or a nerd like I am when it comes to that type of stuff, you tune in and you do a spectrum of all kinds of stuff. And the reason I got into Jack stuff was I wanted to hear more about how I was adjusting to a home scale lifestyle, because I went from making $180,000 a year to dropping and scaling all the way back after a car accident to do this home scale lifestyle. After I saw how the world was, people eating newspaper out of the gutter, dipping it in mud puddles and eating it and stuff, I had to change. So I tuned into him. Once I found about permaculture, I used that to grow more flowers so I can get the best nectar flows in my area. I went into beekeeping and traveled all over the world, so I knew how to take those best plants and raise bees to pollinate them the best, to get the best honeys. So I could turn around and use on my 400-year-old to, a couple thousand-year-old, I think that dated back to 907 AD, but mead recipe. So I did everything for one class, so I could get the best nectar flows from the best plants to get the best honey, so I could make the finest meads. And that was like my goal. And on that trip, John did clear off on a whole nother vision of helping kids around the world grow their own food and pollinate their plants by bees that could produce products for them so they could make money for their communities, for themselves, and also produce food products that are better for all over in orphanages around the world. So, I mean, I jumped off on one jargon to learn to teach kids. And now I'm now that I've got my programs running where people are seeing how they're working, I'm getting calls to come out to specific beekeepers to readjust their apiaries. Mm-hmm. I get phone calls from interesting people that want to get into bees, that we won't mention their names, but, I deal with some higher clientele people now.
Cool.
Because of what I've got to see. And, I can teach how to keep bees in a shed so nobody knows you have them, to running a bee yard that operates 2,000 beehives. If you want to go into a commercial scale, to if you live in India or, somewhere south of the border towards Mexico and somewhere, and you want to get industrial beekeeping where you want to produce tons of packages of bees to sell on the open market around the world, man. I mean, I think that's one of the largest businesses is that industrial level of only making bees, constantly breeding bees, genetically modifying the bees. I mean, that's how we started getting bigger bees the way it is. So,
sure.
I mean, after I learned, my whole skill set is beekeeping and fuel. if I can, that's I think that mead making's in between there, because sometimes my mead can be used as fuel. So, I mean, that's my John Dove experience. Your gentleman that you had on before, yes, on your podcast, very knowledgeable, said some great things. Mentorship is huge. I don't think people understand that in your beekeeping over your lifetime span, you're going to spend a lot of money on education.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if it's not from going to, I teach at the University of Wyoming's Bee College, which is one of the larger Midwestern organizations that people come from all over the world to come and learn about beekeeping. I mean, to go to that is 3 days. Not only is it like $75 to $100 for the ticket, you're talking plane flights, you're talking hotel rooms, dinners, going out and mingling with all the other people. I mean, it's like permaculture voices in the beekeeping world. This is one of those meetings for like that, right? So, so that's one of the things that you're going to probably pay for. And some people go every year to it to mingle and see stuff. But, you're also going to maybe see Les Crowder.
Sure.
He might be doing a top on beekeeping. And, to see him, that's like one in a lifetime opportunity. So, I may pay $50 to hear him talk about his trips and how he got into Kenya top bar beekeeping. And, then I register for my 25 to $75 a year beekeeping club. Because I joined an organization so I can mingle with other beekeepers. So now, just in going to this one group a year, I'm talking a couple $1,000s to my local dues, to buying Beekeepers for Dummies.
Oh, yeah.
Another book another guy recommended. I bought these 2 videotapes. I registered at Perma Ethos and took one of Michael Jordan's courses. You know, after a while, you know, you've dumped $500 to $1,000 just in education, and you haven't got any bees.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I want people to really think about that if you're going to get into beekeeping, don't get bee lust, don't get a top bar hive, don't get a Langstroth hive, don't get an Eco Box hive, don't get a Slovak hive. I mean, don't get a whole bunch of different equipment that don't go together.
Sure.
Because then you spend a whole bunch of money trying to manage 4 or 5 different systems. Yeah, they're cool. I got a couple top bars. I got a couple Langstroths. Right? Do they intersect? No, not really. But, you know, they're kind of cool. But if you're going to get into beekeeping, get 3 to 5 beehives.
Okay.
Get a system that you're going to use, like the Rosewood method or a Langstroth system. Or I have 3 systems that we teach just for Langstroth, and one of them is just for kids in general on how to use Langstroth beekeeping. So, I mean, figure out what kind of, you know, are you doing a weir? You know, that's what we call a hybrid beekeeping. That's Langstroth beekeeping with top bar system, right? And that's weird. So, I mean, you got to figure out what you want to do and what that system's for. Is that system your friend that was on before? He was a pollinator.
Yeah.
Right. They were honey flow guys and pollinators. Did he talk a lot about collecting swarms? No, they're too busy checking boxes and stuff. If the bees swarm, I really don't care. I've got 400 hives to, 1,000 hives that we're working. I don't got time to manage swarm keeping and swarm catching. And I don't have time for the guy that says, hey, man, I got bees in my house. Can you get them out? You got to tell somebody else, man. My time is I got to move these bees to the next location. I got to make sure they have enough feed because I'm downsizing them every time as I go to keep so they don't swarm. So I have big populations when I go to the next field. So, I mean, his beekeeping, his beehives, his whole system is one way. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you get a beehive, what do you want? Do you want wax production? Do you want honey production? Do you want pollen production? Do you want pollination? Are you using micro systems to do overpopulation and selling of bees? Do you want to do a little bit of everything? Do you want to rotate all those systems and try them at a different level to see what you kind of like as an educational basis? Are you sticking cell phones in a beehive to see what they do, getting a grant like I did? I mean, those are...
Wow, that's really cool.
What do you want to do independently if you're going to be a beekeeper? Because if you don't know what you're going to do, please leave them the hell in the damn tree and leave them the hell alone. Because they're going to pollinate right where they are in a tree. Somebody in your neighborhood's probably already a beekeeper. If you don't have bees in your area, you don't have to get honey bees. There's mason bees, there's bumblebees, there's leafcutter bees. Some of them sting, some of them don't sting. Really weigh your options in beekeeping. I mean, I got into beekeeping in 1999 after recovering from a huge car accident, and I was learning to read, write, walk, talk again.
Wow.
I just retired from the Army Corps of Engineers, where I got my 10 years in. I got out. I was getting ready to do some other things. I got in a car accident. So as I was rehabilitating my life, I read a book about mead making from my grandfather. I had to make mead, made mead during my rehabilitation and won some awards. And the next thing you know, we went from 3 beehives to 2,200. We were in California pollinating almonds.
That's a lot of bees. That's crazy. That's a lot of bees.
Then we went from 2,000 beehives down to 500. Yeah. And donated a whole bunch to Katrina victims in Louisiana so they could rebuild their bee yards. I mean, after seeing poisoned honey, bad beekeeping habits and pesticide use, the trouble people have with bad bees, hot bees, Africanized bees, seeing kids overseas that are dipping newspaper in mud puddles and stuff, getting a tax write-off. I got a huge tax write-off for donating the bees. Of course I did. But I didn't have to work them as much, and I could donate my time more to other things. And, right now I try to keep under 500 bees. We have 173. when I get about 250, I start selling them, and I move them around, and I donate them to Boys and Girl Scouts and stuff like that. Because my thing now is I went from learning about mead making to getting a couple packages of bees, and I lost everything. Man, I did it 3 times. I was reading so much information from everywhere. I was trying micro bees with the wrong frames and the wrong hives, and I was using the wrong system. And then I got a mentor, and I learned this whole system of beekeeping. So then I got into where I was a massive pollinator, where we took 2,000 hives to California to pollinate almond fields, regrouped all my money back, broke even, got out of there by sending the beehives to Louisiana on Katrina, regrouped, took my money, and I went on a tour to learn beekeeping in India, Turkey, Ireland.
That's an amazing story too.
Yeah, and got back to the United States and made this program where if you manage bees at different levels to do, like if I want wax production, or we want to sell pollen, or we want to sell honey, or we do want to be a pollen. And if you learn these managerial skills, you can make money, and you can train other people to do this to make money. That beekeeping is $1 billion business with a bee.
Mm-hmm.
A beehive rents for $150 a month to pollinate a field. So if I have 1,000 beehives, that's $100,000. If I pollinate the almond fields with 1,000 beehives for 3 months, that's $300,000. After that, all I have to do is make sure I got them. I can use half that money to keep the bees alive for next year. Then the other half pays my expenses and for me to live. Do I live big? No, man, I got $75,000, but I'm off October, November, December, and January.
Yeah.
So 5 months out of the year, I don't work at all because it's winter and the bees don't do shit.
Right.
But January, I send them right out to the almond field. I dump them out there. I got 1,000 beehives making $100,000 a month. I got February, March, and April. I bring them back. I split them down. I sell some packages. I use some of the packages to make sure my beehives make it next year. And I get a little bit of honey, which is extra money. I get a little pollen. It's a little extra money. I get some propolis. It's a little extra money. I sell some packages of bees. It's a little extra money. I do some classes at my local 4-H building or annex buildings, and I make a little extra money. So I get a little more money on the top. Is it a thing about making money for me? No, because I'm still working at a school, an alternative high school, teaching troubled youth different aspects of business, from raising chickens to limousine companies to, right? I'm trying to get them out in the workforce. Sure. If I wanted to go back to pollinating and be in California and not home, I'd regroup and build my beehives to be a pollinator. I don't want to do that. I want to live here in Wyoming. I want to go and teach beekeeping to people that want to learn on a little superior level. That I'm just not going to get you a backyard beekeeper. I mean, to come to one of my programs, after you talk to Greg Burns and stuff, that
yep.
I'm on a huge advanced level that I'm skipping some things to try to make you queen more, to split more, so you can have more populations of bees as some of my more programs, and they're more dedicated for kids. A lot of times that, I was down in Tyler, Texas. There's a boys' home down there. Yeah, you got me there. You let me stay. Did I make a lot of money? No, actually, that was a loss for me. But I got to teach them at a boys' home. I got to teach them how to build beehives.
Right.
Out of wood for wood carpenter skill, and they didn't even have to touch bees. Taught them how to make them so that there was a superior beehive that they could go work for Dannett, or even work for other companies that want to make beehives using rabbit joints, or the way I want to do them with the metal bands on the sides for no rot, no decay, heavy barrier for bouncing around for construction. So teaching these skills to these kids, yeah, I didn't really lose anything, but I didn't make any money either. But I got to go see some things that I wanted to see. I got to teach some people a great skill. I think those are some of the things that you have to think about in your beekeeping.
Sure.
So that's where my cupby came from. Is I wanted to be a mead maker. So I went to learn the best way to be a beekeeper, so I could find the best floral and how to work the bees so I could produce the best honeys. to locate the best honeys, to find out what the best florals are for honeys, to make fine meads. And
right,
you know, I make some exotic fine meads that some of them are $250 a gallon just to make.
Wow.
Right. You know, so you're making, you know, most people are like, wow, dude, I make a gallon of mead at my house for $17.
I'm kind of there. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. You're not throwing gold flakes in your mead.
No.
You're not using cannabis oils and THC oils, or you're not shipping in Montelukka honey from New Zealand. And you're not doing some, you know, I'm working with beekeepers that make some finer honeys to, you know, Himalayan red honey that's hallucinogenic. And
oh my gosh.
You know, I'm working with some finer stuff to get out a product that, you know, the Kings had.
Yeah.
Kings mead, man. I'm not just throwing some honey down, baby, and some yeast. I'm getting something out there that when you pass it around, people are like, man, no wonder that king of that area, man, his mead maker's the finest. Because that's what I learned about beekeeping is when I went back to Ireland, is that the kings owned the beekeepers. The kings told which lands got pollinated. The beekeeper would go out, pollinate this guy's land based on the taxes he paid.
Wow. That's life or death in some cases, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you couldn't pay taxes, your crops you got crops, but you didn't get them like Terrence did. His orchard was huge this year. Well, the bees were in there.
Yeah.
Right? So the honey that was produced went to the baker for sweetbreads that paid the better taxes.
Sure.
Right? The churches got the wax product based on the taxes that they paid the king. Right? So beekeeping, the guy that ran the bees, he had a pretty good life because the king made lots of money off of him.
Sure enough.
When it was all said and done, he had this product that he made mead, the king's mead. And it was based on the fruits and the honeys of his land, of the king's land. And when the king parlayed with other kings, he would bring his mead of his land, right? You'd sit down and you drink, and ooh, your land's spicy. Yes, we have peppers. It's grand here, and the honey's dark. And you know, another king would be talking about the fruits and how sweet it was in his land.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the only time we drank mead was at a parlay. You know, friendship with sharing each other's wealth of each other's land. Or my family got married, right? It was the honeymoon mead, right?
Sure,
and we'd have lots of kids and to have a good life and the moon of the mead, right?
Yeah, totally.
Another one was before war. You drank mead before you went to war because it might be the last great drink you have before your greatest death. And then you drank mead when you came home to heal the wounds from the adventure that you had.
Sure.
That's the only time you really drank mead. And I mean, that's from where I looked at the adventure of mead. I mean, if you look back through the era of probably from Turkey and down to Egypt, might hear of a different story of the Egyptian tombs and processing the mead. Or if you're from China and Asia, their meads are different. Their stories of making meads and meaderies are different, right? It's about that's part of my beekeeping skills that I tell you about your history is, you know, you should find the history of all the way back to your ancestors of beekeeping, all the way down to where the beekeeping is in your area and how the bees got there, all the way back to, you know, I traced my beekeeping from my mentor, the States. They're all the way back from the 1800s. They got their bees from Virginia that the Huffs brought over from Poland into the United States. So this is like 1600.
Wow.
Right. That's how far back I traced the bees from Wyoming. The two beekeeping families that are the oldest beekeepers here. One is the Bryant's brothers. They have about 6,000 to 10,000 beehives in Wyoming.
Wow.
And they're one of the first beekeepers here. Their great-grandfather took one beehive from Virginia, brought it here, and now they have 10,000 beehives.
That's amazing.
Jack State, my mentor, their same family story, went to the Sand Springs area. He ended up becoming the entomologist for the University of Wyoming.
Wow. And
then teaching beekeeping on a level for pesticide use and how to profit for beekeeping for the United States Department of Agriculture. So they got their bees from West Virginia. I found out that the bees came from West Virginia from a family called Huff. 1600 from Poland, King Henry VIII's beekeepers. And then I just kind of followed like my beekeeping and where I went. Went to Turkey to find out because bees originated in the Mediterranean belt in Turkey, in the Egyptian area, and then brought up into Europe, stolen by the Vikings at the same time to make mead.
That's my people.
people. Yeah.
And the Polish too, there too. So
that's my company, right? Is we teach beekeeping on a superior level where we teach kids to be the great, all the way to commercial beekeeping for kids. to backyard beekeeping for somebody that just wants to have some bees for some wax, some honey. I like my garden pollinate. So we tell you the location where the bees would go, how to set them up. You know, don't set the beehives ever in your garden.
No, that wouldn't be a good
garden
idea.
will never get pollinated, right? So people are like, well, that's where I want my bees. The garden's there. And you're like, well, the bees are never going to see it when they come out and orientate flight. They missed everything in your garden and you didn't get any pollination and you wasted your time.
Well, yeah, that would be bad.
So, you know, we teach all different levels of beekeeping. And then I make honey co-ops for small backyard beekeepers. So all their honey can go to one co-op.
Oh, that's a smart idea. That's a real smart idea.
Then, so, you know, let's say, you know, you're a backyard beekeeper and you produce, you know, one beehive produces 20 to 30 pounds.
Sure.
You got 5 beehives. Well, that's, you know, 30 pounds and times 5, you know, you look at, you know, 1,500 pounds of honey. That's a lot of honey to be packing around.
Yeah.
So you give out some friends, you make some different gifts, different products, make your own mead. But now I'm sitting on honey that's starting to crystallize.
Yes.
Well, let's just all put it together. It'll be localized raw honey. So it'll have all the pollens from around the local area all mixed together.
Oh, yeah.
So when we sell this nice product, the money can refund all of us as a co-op. So no one's really making any money because the co-op truly makes no money. Right? So everybody just gets all of it. So if I put in 10 pounds, whatever we sold it all for, your half is 10 pounds out of the 400 pounds. This is your share.
Huh.
Thanks for contributing to the co-op. And then sometimes I buy it out of the co-op to make my needs.
Sure.
Or to fulfill some of the needs I have. I have a granola company. So most of my honey goes to a granola company that I sell to.
Okay. You don't own the granola company. You sell to them.
Yeah. So I looked outside the barrier.
Yeah.
People are like, well, I'm going to get honey. I'm going to go to the farmer's market.
Yeah.
So, you know, I taught Benton McKibben for Neoteric Farms, you know, think way out of the box. He says, man, I do really good at farmer's market. And I said, okay, I don't sell at farmer's market. I give 4,000 pounds of honey to a granola company and I get a flat fee. It doesn't matter how much I make after that. And I give them a good raw product and I get good money for it. Then after that, it's made honey, it's farmer's market honey, It's friends honey, it's gifts, it's whatever I want to do with it. But I make this demand and then I don't have to go to the farmer's market pushing it. I sell it to the one person. Huh. He goes, well, how do I do that? So now he sells his honey to a brewery.
Oh, yeah.
And they make a honey ale from Neoteric Farm collaboration. And now he only has to sell honey 2 to 3 times a year so they can make ale. And it just supplements his money and gets rid of most of his honey. Right. So now he's got honey for all this stuff he does, but he doesn't have to be really farmer's market. If you tried our honey, we're local, we're right here. He's like, yeah, I've got honey, dude. It's $10 a pound. Right. And they're going to go, well, I'm getting honey down the way at 8. He goes, go buy it down there, dude. I've got a premium product and I know it because the brewery down the way is buying it. And if you don't want to pay my price, you can go have a beer at the other price. I have a good product here. And then, you know, he's selling other vegetables and stuff. That's why he went from farmers markets to restaurants. Yeah. Selling his greens and stuff and salad greens to restaurants. That's the out of the box things that I kind of teach the kids at the alternative school. It's you're a good basketball player, but I'm going to tell you, it's like American Idol. Only one of you wins, man.
Yeah, that's true.
None of you here are going to be a pro basketball player, but I tell you what, you really like basketball. You have all the information, and sometimes the guys that get picked up working in a coliseum become sportscasters. And they become people that are really big because they know the sport so much because I saw him every day at the Denver Broncos Stadium watching football. And what did he do? He was the guy that ran the concession stand on aisle number 7 and knew all the stats because he had the wide open free football field tickets. And all he did was sell hot dogs. I said, so think outside the way box and what you like and see how it makes the most money with the less effort.
Yes, that is the key right there. I mean, we work so hard sometimes to make a couple bucks, and we're not thinking bigger like that. That's amazing. Maybe I should go to school, go have you be my teacher for a while. Or my boys for sure, man. They're just, one just got out of the Army, and then the other one's just going to go to college, and it's like, maybe, you know, let's think about this a little bit. There's other ways to go. You know, there's other ways to go at life, not just
Everybody's
college.
not a college graduate.
Correct.
Not everybody's military. Not everybody's a ditch digger, but we need lots of them.
Right.
like I said, I went to California and I was living, you know, if you listen to Drew's show about me, I talk about living on the beach and eating ravioli out of a can. And then I got this gig of selling shower heads to hotel rooms and went from sand fleas biting my unmentionables to making, you know, $100,000+ in 6 months selling shower heads to get me into school. Investing in myself, invest in yourself, invest in yourself. Don't invest in anyone else.
Yeah.
Right. Don't be giving money away thinking that someone's going to make you money.
Nope.
You need to put that money in you because you're the only one that's going to make that money. That's going to make that life-changing event. That's going to invent that new light bulb. That's going to change the world. Because if you're investing in somebody else, they'll change the world, and you'll be the guy standing behind going, "I wasted my money."
Yeah. Totally. That story about the book from Drew's podcast with you. I mean, that was really that was like the tipping point for you, it seemed. You know, it was one tipping point anyway, where you found this book and had it translated. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm rehabilitating and I'm just learning to read, write again. And my grandfather died at the same time as I'm doing this. So as my mom's helping rehabilitate me, she's going through the attics and getting stuff of his to get rid of, and I'm going through it. Found this old ledger. And it was written on potato skin. It's kind of weird looking.
Amazing, yeah.
And it had Gaelic ruins on it and some Northlandic ruins on it. And it had some pictures on it. And it was written in Gaelic and stuff. So I took it to the University of Wyoming, and I had a friend go through it. And he started doing some translations and stuff through it. Went through it. It was like almost like a kid's story. And it talked about the Vikings, how they came across the land, looking to enslave the land, because if they could control the land, they could control the food.
Right.
How you controlled the food was by pollination, and they brought bees in. And the Vikings were coming in to steal the bees because they made a thing called mead. And then it talked about the sugars from the earth. It talked about all these different things of where the sun, how it makes the nectar, and how it makes this king's mead. And how the Vikings came in to try to steal these hives to make this king's mead. And on our lands of Ireland, the nectar was the best from periwinkle and clover. So it made, you know, so it told this adventure of making king's mead. And I made what it said. And, you know, I set water out for 3 months.
Wow.
Uncovered with cheesecloth on it. I used pollen for yeast, and I made this mead, and it took almost 2 years to make it.
Wow.
And as I'm making this mead and it's going, you know, I'm looking really into meats. Then I found some quick batch kits, and I found some books, and I really got into mead making. And then I made some really good meads and entered a couple competitions. And then I pulled out my King's mead. After 3 years, I had some beehives. They weren't really working out at the time, but I had these products that were coming out. And I won a France event on my King's mead for natural fermentation.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I guess there's only like 4 of these natural fermentations for mead in the world. And I have one of them out of this storybook that my grandfather had.
That's amazing.
From Ireland. So, my family were beekeepers, and it was just kind of like the story of how we kept bees. And at the end, it says the only thing that was left on our island was this delicious drink and the bodies of the dead Vikings that were here.
Wow.
Because we kicked them out and we took the land. And then, of course, they cast out the snakes and the druids left. But, so I had this great recipe for mead, won some awards with it, and was working bees, and they just weren't working out. The bees weren't working out. I wasn't getting honey flows. I was trying to find honey to make my meads. And then I found my mentor, Jack States. And then my whole thing changed around, and I learned beekeeping.
That's great.
And I went from having 10 beehives in my yard to getting a permit for a 40-acre crop to set out 2,285 beehives. And I bought out 2 bee companies out of California, shipped the bees to Wyoming, and started managing them. And for 2 years, we did almond contracting. And the 3rd year after almond contracting, that's about 2006, 2007.
Yep.
That's when Katrina went through.
Mm-hmm.
We sold out of all those beehives, got out of that, regained all our money from buying the companies out, made a good profit. And me and my dad, I went on a journey of learning beekeeping from around the world, from all the different types of bees to the different types of beehives to the different types of flowers. And then we came back and wrote this program. And then this program's been picked up by all kinds of people, 4-H groups, United Nations,
Sure.
Sally Struthers orphanages.
Really?
Yeah, and it just teaches you the program of the simple scale of beekeeping and how to build mini apiaries as the populations grow to build more products, how to make these products scale on a system of business where this year we do honey. We're growing as a honey company. After 5 years of honey, we're well known, and now we introduce a new product of beeswax. So now we expand, right? So now we do this. So it shows growth. We show that how you can take your companies into grow or you fail.
Yep.
Right. So as you're teaching these kids these programs, right, that you wanted to show them growth, multitude of products, how to get those products, how to make the equipment for them, look for the equipment, how to expand those ideas. I mean, we teach everything just in the honey aspect.
Sure.
Not only to produce honey, how to produce Ross round honeycomb, square honeycomb for sale, how to do honeycomb in the jar, how to do fruit with honeycomb in the jar, how to extract the honey naturally so it's got chunks of wax in it, how to spin honey. We also tell you how to make creamed honeys, how to add additives to the creamed honeys to make cinnamon apple creamed honey.
Ooh, that
or
sounds good.
pecan creamed honey.
Ooh, that sounds
how to
really
turn
good.
around and take those products and make powdered honey. Right. So, I mean, so all those things are honey. That's just one thing that you can sell. And it's not only are those products just with the honey. Would you like to make a honey nut barbecue sauce? So now you'll need honey. Right. So, I mean, so we're going to teach you how to look for people that are looking for honey. Honey Nut Cheerios, ketchup people, barbecue people, soap, shampoo companies, people that make body scrubs. Right. So those are just the honey products out of the 9 products that we teach in beekeeping. Right. So each one of those has many products. So you can we do honey. We do 13 different things with honey.
Yeah.
So, do you guys do bee removal? No, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole other thing that this guy teaches, a whole other business aspect to an aspect where you can be really big living in Texas and Louisiana where it's hot. You have bee swarms constantly year round.
Sure.
And it even could be more dramatic that we specialize in Africanized bee removal.
Oh, yeah.
Or we're a swarm catching people and we teach local clubs and organizations how to group crop on catching swarms so everybody gets bees and bees don't infiltrate and make problems in other people's homes. I mean, we have the mobile bee trap that's on our YouTube channel where we show if you guys put these up, you can control swarming out of apiaries. For a big, like your gentleman that was on, we have 400 hives. I don't have, we don't talk about swarm catching, if they swarm when we get them, it's cool. Other than that, but if you work with a guy that specializes in that,
sure,
he could put swarm traps around their facility. They wouldn't lose as many bees, and they could work asymbiotically, either selling some of those swarms, repopulating some of his losses, or the guy using them to build his new apiary.
That's smart.
So, I mean, there's so many different realms and all different ones. It's propolis. You can sell the propolis to a facility in Texas, and they do testicular and breast cancer research with it.
That's amazing.
There's people that do bee sting therapy. You go to First Acupuncture stuff. Yeah, right. I mean, I'm getting ready to get my AP therapy license here in 2 years. The lady, Raina Carlson, that's the #1 bee therapist in the United States, is kind of working with me.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, I have bee lust. I have all the beehives. I have all the smokers. I have all the different kinds of bees. I try to do all the stuff so you don't have to.
Yeah.
I spent
That's
a lot
great
of money.
slogan. I like that.
I mean, I spent a lot of money to learn this trade.
Yeah.
And to learn it on a level that if you want to just have a beehive in your backyard, that's cool. Or if you want it on a level where, I want to have 2,000 beehives, Mike, what do we got to do? Well, we got to build pallets so they can hold these beehives. We need to find a co-op.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't get a contract.
Right.
I mean, the contracts are all built up. Some people may never have bees and own a contract.
Huh.
Right? I got this almond grove that I got to get a million beehives to, right? I don't have any bees,
right?
But I have this contract.
I know,
and
people.
they're paying me $200. Yeah, they're paying me $200 a hive to pollinate the almonds. So then I call the big bee companies. I said, "So who are you selling? Do you got bees that want to come in?"
Huh.
Well, I've only got like 500. Well, then I start calling, and then they all co-op, and these semi trucks come out with 5 different bee companies pollinating together to come out to fill my contract. Wow. Because I got to fill this contract to pollinate these almonds. And that's how that all works. So, it's a huge business. That's pollination contracts.
That just blows my mind, really.
You go from almonds to oranges to apples to cucumbers to melons, back to the clover fields to the berries. Pack them, winterize them, send them back out to the almonds, to the oranges, to the apples, to the cucumbers, to the berries.
Don't forget the cranberries up in Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yeah, right. I mean, and there's some guys that's all they do is berries.
Sure.
Right, and that's also specialized berry honey. Right, your blackberry honeys. Right, they're only coming from blackberry nectar, which gives a whole different taste to the honey than orange blossom honey or Montaluca honey or Nativio honey. I mean, so those are all different flavored honeys that I work with, even brokers that sell 45 to 125 different honeys from all around the world that you can try.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So you had a picture on your Facebook page of a red honey that had fruit or something. What was that?
Well, that came from, that photo was sent to me from a friend that's out of Panama.
Oh, okay.
Right, and what he has is it's a Toblo melon, I think is what it's called. I'll look it up real quick because he sent it to me. He goes, because I feed my bees watermelon.
Oh, okay.
And it sometimes gives them some red tip. I mix some Mendocino cherries, the cherries you put in your drinks.
Sure.
I have a friend that works for a company that makes those, so he'll send me a 5-gallon bucket full of them. And then when I get watermelons on sale, I cut the tops off the watermelon and use a paint mixer, mash up the whole inside.
Sure.
And then pour some water, pour some honey, and pour some Mendocino cherry juice in there, and it changes the color of the honey.
Oh yeah.
We do it because as the bees eat it, you can see the male drones turn red.
Oh, cool.
You can kind of see their digestive tract when you're teaching kids. But he said it's called vermelho, the mellow fruit, Vermelho. It's a fruit of Panama. And what they do is they leave it out and kind of mash it up. The bees really like to eat it. And the bees take in the sweet juices from the fruit back as a nectar to store as the honey.
Sure.
So the honey is a red strawberry looking honey that tastes kind of like strawberries.
Wow, that's really cool.
It's a natural way. It's just something natural the bees are picking up. I mean, another one is, there was a guy in Pennsylvania by the Hershey Park, Pennsylvania, where they make the M&Ms.
Yep.
So the bees got into the M&M factory, got the greens and blues, and they had greens and blues honeys. But you can't sell those because those are a non-natural viable product, right?
Sure.
That have many tons of additives in it.
Oh yeah.
It's probably not good for the bees, but bees downtown are going to hit the local McDonald's trash cans for all the soda pop the kids throw away.
Oh yeah.
If you go to your local zoos and amusement parks, you can see. Be careful, make sure all our trash cans are closed so we do not have bee problems.
Right.
Because when you're dumping 40 pounds of cotton candy and snow cones in those trash cans, the bees are like, sugar, right? They go right to it. So, those make different things. But there's natural ways that you can do coloring to honey, right? So you can, there's a natural ways. Like I'm doing watermelons and stuff. This gentleman's using the vermelho fruit. You can take honey and then blend in different colors to it. So you can add apple juice to your honey. Cool. Now remember, any type of juice that you add to it and water starts fermentation.
Sure.
So you do it in small amounts to feed back to the bees, right? I'm big on making teas for bee feeds, adding like chamomile, adding peppermint, echinacea, just some stuff to help with the digestive stuff with the bees, because the bees get into a whole bunch of crap. They get dysentery and nosema. Oh, sure. So, I try some more natural methods. I mean, you could get Bee Pro and stuff like that from Danit or Manlate and feed the bees to help them. But, you can get some natural teas and make some teas, mixing some honey and doing a more natural method. I'm big on using thyme.
Sure.
In some of my bee mix because it's a regenerative brain and cognitive memory thing. Your bees are flying. They're hitting the leaves on the trees. The dust is hitting them. They're knocking their little heads. Their inside petals busting around, banging on their heads a little bit. And like I said, after my brain injury and stuff and having to regrow, some of those things we try to use some more natural methods of regrowth. So Gunther Hawk of Biodynamic Farms, it's Spikenard Farms. They have a recipe called BT Spikenard Farms, and it talks about all that stuff: peppermint for the tummy, thyme for their brain, ginkgo biloba stuff for facial recognition and bee memorative, using ginseng and echinacea for speed and endurance and tummy evaluation. So, I mean, even some of your feeds, I think that when I'm so deep into beekeeping, I breed my own bees. I make some of my own specialized feed. I work on a level that's a little bit different. Like I said, I'm the guy that put the cell phones in the beehive to see if they messed with them. And that's when the Discovery Channel found me back in, I think it was 2007, 2008, when they came by and they said, hey, I heard you're putting these cell phones in beehives. Why are you doing that? I said, well, the bees are dying. The population's going to shit. They're hearing all kinds of stuff. And I think it's because of only two things. I think it's bad beekeeping. And I think it's the use of pesticides. It's killing everything. I said, we need to adjust. And bats are dying.
Yeah.
Lady was like, what does that have to do with anything? I said, well, bats eat bugs. If you're killing the bugs with massive amounts of pesticides, it kills the bats. The bats is the largest, most natural response to bugs.
True.
You know why you have a lot of bugs? Is you guys are killing off the bats.
Yeah, true.
So, if they're killing off the bats, that means you're having to make more pesticides. Eventually, you're going to kill off my bees. And that was one of the big things. Back in 2008-9, we did a study with the cell phones. We put the bees under big electrical towers. And we just kind of found out that beekeepers were 80 and 90 years old, and those boxes were heavy.
Sure.
Their kids were going to college and becoming accountants and moving to New York and not keeping bees.
True.
The education was based on A.E. Root and Langstroth, and they were one was a priest and the other was a scientist. One upsized the bees, making the bees so now they have mites and trachea mites because they're so big.
Yep.
It's kind of like me. I'm upsized. I don't do any better. That's for damn sure. Right. So, I mean, and then we got people that are doing it on a backyard level. And when you do it on a backyard level for non-certain product, my area is different than your area, and your area is different than this guy. So the books, a guy's written one in Europe. We don't have any of the plants they do. And he's working with Buckfast Abbey bees from Buckfast Abbey, where the monks used to ohm and work the bees naturally up in the mountains of, Buckfast. And we don't have any of that shit here in Wyoming. And that ain't going to work for me here.
Not in Minnesota either.
The one guy's all natural and stuff. Then you find out he's top bar beekeeping, and I have none of that equipment. I read his whole book. So, I mean, it became to a thing where I found out that you should find out all the aspects when people ask questions, and you should get really in deep detail, and you should reach out to where this stuff's being found and find out about it. Because I like I said, I went on a journey.
Yeah, you did.
I met great beekeepers from Turkey and India. I never really got into Asia, but I did get into Australia, and I met one of the largest beekeepers that sells packaged bees and even brings millions of beehives to California to help pollinate the bee fields and the almonds.
Wow. So,
I mean, I've got to meet some really extraordinary beekeepers on this journey. And then when people ask questions, I think it's my obligation to find out that why do my drones have white eyes? Well, I have to look into that, right? Is it a disease? Is it a natural phenomenon? Is it albinoism? I don't know. So I'm going to find out. I'm going to call UC Davis Entomology. I'm going to call the University of Montana's Beekeeping College. I'm going to call Michael Bush and see what he knows about any parasites or anything in white drones, right? And then I'm going to get back to you. I'm not going to leave you hang. I'm going to let you know. Found out something that's an oddity. Send me some pictures. These other guys I'm talking to want to see it. Sounds cool.
Well, it's a way to share knowledge. Yeah. Well, that was pretty incredible. Great conversation with Michael Jordan there. I mean, what a story. From world traveler as part of the Army Corps of Engineers, building fueling facilities all over, to having a significant accident. It sounds familiar to Greg Burns, where they both had these car accidents, and it was a major life-changing event. And suddenly their life is going one way, life event happens, and they take a sudden left turn or right turn, and life sends you in a new direction. It's a story that it's repeated over and over and over, and especially Julie and I and our family, we know that quite well. So, that was a lot. That was a lot of information to take in, and I hope you learned a little bit there. I think I think one of the biggest takeaways from that segment of the conversation. I mean, I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, beekeeping, that's $1 billion business. Let's get into that," But there's a lot to it. Michael Jordan, he traveled the world to get to know these things, to dig into it, and I think it's one of the biggest takeaways. Not the $1 billion business thing, not all the different ways to go about it. I mean, certainly there's some great opportunities there if you're so inclined, and if you want to do the work and you want to work with bees. 40,000 angry female bees that could kill you, but nothing to be scared of, right? But I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation was, if you find something you're really interested in and you really love, something that just drives you and you're just so captivated by it, you need to go on a journey. Go on a journey, and it might not be traveling the world to Turkey and Egypt and all Poland and all over the world. Maybe it would be. Maybe. I know people that have done that for genealogy and other things. But if you find that thing you really love and really you're interested, go on a journey. Discover. Get into the details. Get into the nitty-gritty and learn from the experts. Dig deep. And once you've learned, come back and share your knowledge with others. I think that is the biggest takeaway from this part of the conversation. And, I really respect Michael Jordan. Yeah, man crush? I don't know. Come on, guys. But he's an expert. And when you talk to an expert, you recognize the skill. You recognize the work that's gone into becoming that expert. And it's something you really appreciate. So I appreciate Michael Jordan coming on the show. That digging deep, that going on a journey. And it really is, if you think about it, it's the essence of small scale life. Major life change, decided to start documenting this stuff and digging into it and trying to share knowledge, learning new skills and practicing those skills and growing those skills, and then sharing those skills with others. Those are all part of the core values here at Small Scale Life. So I really have to thank Michael Jordan for being on the show. And spending time with us. I have to thank Drew Sample and Greg Burns, but really Drew Sample, thank you, man, for connecting us. You too, Greg, you're awesome, man, and providing questions. You guys are great. I can't wait to be with all three of you at Hogtoberfest 2017. Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this episode. We here at Small Scale Life, we really appreciate you. We love your engagement. Please like this episode, share it around, really think about it. Think about some of the elements that he talked about, that we talked about. Share this with others, because maybe there's somebody that just doesn't even think about bees and doesn't even really, is looking for an opportunity, looking for a new start. And there's a lot of different ways you can go. I mean, the honey co-op, man, that sounds really cool. I mean, that a lot of businesses have been in place, started as co-ops, and they've turned into really, really neat operations. So anyway, share this with others, please. Get the word out there. And I've got 2 more episodes of Michael Jordan. I think they're going to be great, and I really hope that you come back and listen to those. So my message to you this weekend, 4th of July weekend, please get out there and try something new. Start your own journey and to become an expert in something. You can do it. A journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with a single step. So take that single step this weekend. Follow Michael Jordan's advice and his example, and be friendly, right? So there's a ton of links. If you want to hear more about Michael Jordan, please see the podcast show notes. I've got links to all kinds of stuff, including his class on perma-ethos. Bee Friendly Company, Underground Meadery for learning mead. We're going to make some mead with Michael. So stay tuned. You're going to want to be there for that show in the future. And then also Drew Sample. Michael's been on there several times. Jack Spurko Survival Podcast. He's been on there several times. And even Diego Footer's Permaculture Voices website. He's got some podcasts there too. So absorb, learn, do, grow, start that journey, begin with that single step. And remember, we're always here for you. Remember to always learn, do, and grow. This is Tom from The Small Scale Life. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Happy Father's Day for last week. I missed that. And summer solstice. Woohoo. But everybody have a great 4th of July. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next week, okay? Take care. We'll see you soon.